the basics of management are still there. Tough leader has changed a little bit.
The crab career used to be like climbing that greasy pole, but there's also a lot of value of like, being happy. A lot of people will take a pay cut for more happiness.
But the people you're working with are humans.
Where are you?
I'm in San Diego.
Yes, I know. Remember, you live in.
Well, this one's me
places.
work. This is work, work and other stuff. But yeah.
Oh, fine. There you go.
I moved
I
around.
put a little ticker on for us, but it's great because I know
That's fun.
I love it. These platforms are so incredible nowadays. I mean, the things you can do with them, it's brilliant. So,
I know I think Zoom is pretty cool, but now that I see some of the other tools out there that people are using, it's amazing.
Oh, it's amazing. You can like stream. So you can actually stream this live to all the different social platforms. If we were doing it live, so it's super interesting, this stuff. I used to pre-COVID, it used to be had to come into the office to do a podcast with me. And
even you had to go do that. Yeah, well, of course.
I had a little studio. Yeah, I had like the mics. You'd come in, we'd have a cuddle, we'd say hey, whatever, and then get into it. So
think of how else you can use your income. You could use it for other things then instead of all that.
No, it's true. It's true. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Let me give you. I'll give you a short intro, just who you are for those that don't know you, just to give some context, and then really excited to speak to you about leadership and stuff. I've got a bunch of like kind of topics I wanted to get your insights on, but let me give you a proper introduction, and I hope I do you justice. You are the managing director and senior partner at Boston Consulting Group, also known as BCG. You're the chair of the BCG Center for Inclusion and Equity and North American Regional Chair Emeritus, and the author of The Generous Leader, which is what's brought us together today. So I hope I've not missed out anything, but Jay, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. The only thing you missed is I have grandchild number 8 due any day to any hour.
Wow.
I know you missed that. You don't know that, but that's like very top of mind for me.
I love that. 8 grandchildren. Amazing.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah. Just interesting, before we even kick off, obviously you've got a few children. How have you found 4 kids? Okay. Because like I'm going to say, certainly when I remember when my dad was working, he worked 5 days a week in a bank, and just back then, like most of the fathers were working and not, you didn't see them by the school dates so often.
Right.
How have you managed to integrate, having a high profile career and family?
Well, it's interesting because it's not just, you said your dad banking, so I presume he left in the morning and came home at night. Remember, I was a consultant, so I was gone 3 to 4 days a week on the road on top of it.
Wow.
So yeah, my children will tell me, now they'll be more thoughtful, but they'll say, Dad, you were never gone. I was gone 4 days a week. Oh, that's right. We just didn't know. So, I tell you two things I will say. One, I was very focused on the family from Thursday night until Sunday night when went to bed. I mean, really, I used to golf a lot. I didn't golf because that's 1/4 of the time I have with my children. I never gave up running because I like to run. So there was complete devotion those 3 days, really. And then the other important thing I did, I think, was if there was when your child's 9 years old, and there's a very important thing at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday, it's in the school, I would fly home from wherever, unless I was overseas or something, but I'd fly home, make that event, get up early the next morning and be back at the client. And I would not miss those things. I sometimes someone say, where are you going? So I have to go to my kids' thing. I'm leaving. But you don't live here. I know, but I'm not missing it. And so my mom missed almost everything. We'll go very far there, but I made sure I didn't miss anything I could miss. So that's, and then we made sure we sat down to dinners Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. I mean, just those kind of steps. And unfortunately, I didn't have FaceTime. So I can talk to my grandkids all the time. I couldn't do that.
No. What others around you doing the same? Like, were you unusual in that regard that you would?
Yeah, people couldn't understand how I would go home on a Tuesday night and get up at 4:30 to be on the plane at 6 and come back the next day, or they'd think, "Well, you're going to get in trouble," or no, somehow I thought about that very early on, my friend, that what is more
Yeah.
important? Those that family is more important. I mean, the job's great and all that. I mean, let me be clear. I love my
Sure.
job, so it's more than great.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think many more nowadays. Well, nowadays it's whole different. I mean, two of my son-in-laws are at home every day. They work from home. It's very
It's
nice.
gone so different. Do you think
Yeah.
Jill, linking this to leadership, that leaders are encouraging that behavior more to integrate work and life?
Well, I think that's an interesting question because I think that varies. Well, probably varies across the person, to be blunt. I mean, if I look across my country, it seems to vary initially very, very much geographically, you might guess, or type of company. But I do think more importantly now, a lot of, well, I have a colleague who very much deeply believes in the hybrid and the flexibility. And I believe in the flexibility, but if you're not ever with people other than you, here we are on a screen together, how do you really develop everything you need to develop? I won't even say leadership, but connections and, depending on your
Yeah.
business, meeting with clients. So I think more and more people are encouraging allowing flexibility if they're really quite open in their thinking, but encouraging connection, being together, whether you're together at a client, an office, at a Starbucks with a team, whatever it might be. And that varies by
Yeah.
industry. I mean, there's all kinds of caveats to what I just said.
Yeah. 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 No, it's true. It's true. I mean, you're seeing a lot of companies, depending on the industry, want people back. Well, I say
Oh
back,
yeah.
white collar workers.
Yeah. No,
Like
no,
they want
right.
them in. Yeah.
Yeah, we have to be fair. The people that worked in the grocery stores were always there. The people that worked in making things work in the factories were always
Hospitals
there.
and
I mean, we can get,
yeah.
we can get a little lost in our white collar world. You're right.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think if you're in that conversation, it's you're really lucky, right? Like to be able to kind
Yeah.
of have a debate and choose where you want to work from. It's quite interesting, actually. I saw an article, and you don't have to comment on this, but I saw an article. It was like last week. Dell basically said to their workforce that if you don't come back in some regard, so either a few days or full time, you won't get promoted, which I thought was really interesting. So while you think about that, I did a poll on LinkedIn yesterday, and slightly more. It was only 60% of people actually so far said, that's disgraceful. I thought it would have been a lot more. And 40% were like, you know what, they pay your salary, and someone wants you in, you need to come in.
Yeah.
So it
I
was
mean, I
quite
think
interesting.
Amazon said if you don't come back, we'll fire you. I don't know if they really fired everybody, so but I do actually think Michael, well, whether Michael or head of HR, their point there is you need to be working with people if you're going to learn how to develop people and manage people and et cetera, et cetera. I'll tell you, I have a little cynical. I actually don't disagree with that terribly. Maybe you can phrase it differently and all that, but I do imagine the superstars, even if they didn't come back every day, would still get promoted. That's the only thing. Really
That's
lose your
true.
best people. Now the superstars probably come in every day, whatever that means. But I wonder how
Yeah,
that'll play out. So no offense, Dell, but they're sending a signal. If you're going to manage
yeah.
people, you need to know how to connect to people. That's what they're trying to say. They're just not saying it very well, maybe.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. I mean, I think the communication part's key. It's like, Elon Musk. You kind of know that if you're going to work
Well,
wherever whatever company he runs, it's 24/7, and you sign up for that.
yeah, right.
um,
And I don't know how many. Oh, I don't know the date on how many 42-year-olds does he have still working there 20 years later. But that's okay. He gets a lot of young talent. Churn it out.
yeah,
Get the
yeah,
best out of them. It's okay.
yeah.
It's
That's
on
true.
your
So, just
resume.
given all of this stuff, like, what is? It's interesting to think, like, your views on what good leadership looks like now, because we've always had, we've always had this caricature, tough leader, quite directive. That caricature. Do you think
Yeah,
is that
yeah.
changed, or not really?
So, I have a few thoughts on that. First off, I do think the basics of management are still there. You have to be at least to some level strategic. You have to have some kind of vision. You got to set targets. You have to be able to figure out how to drive change and manage metrics. So none of that's changed. And I was talking to Joaquin Duato, and he said, as soon as people remember that outcomes, I mean, first you got to remember outcomes matter. It does matter. However, the sooner you get past yourself and realize that it's a team that helps you get it done, you'll tap into all the best traits of used towards humanity to actually drive value. So, your question on the tough, I was thinking about that because, you just think of our time right now. There's so much going on, right? I mean, in the world. I mean, and I don't even need to list it all just to press us. And arguably, at least in my 40 years of business, there's been major things that have happened, but I don't know about so many around the same time. So you could say, hey, isn't tough times tough leader? But I would say that yes, except the tough leader has changed a little bit. Now a tough leader needs to be able to connect and engage with their people. They always need to motivate, inspire, but to your, whether well, you made the point, you're at home. So even when you're at home more, I mean, for work, you're probably on more too. It's probably more 24/7ish. So now the whole damn thing's, well, I don't, it looks like you're in your living room or something. The whole thing's blurred. So, a leader has to understand and be empathetic to where their people are, what's going on in their life. You always had to be a good listener and really understand their perspective to get the best out of them. I don't think the best leaders understand that. So, I mean, I could move on here, but I still think you have to be a great manager, driving outcomes, and you got to bring, empathy and, listening skills, etc., to that job.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're right. There's so many things going on in the world right now. It also seems, and I always find this quite interesting, it seems very polarized as well, the world right now. Whether it's like, I mean, politics is obviously a great example, especially in the US, we have just two parties and an election coming up. But we have in the UK, we have an election coming up too. Do you find that that's also changed? Because, it's always been, don't speak about politics, religion, and I forget the last one. Was it politics, religion, and
money, or
money.
If it's about marriage, it could be the other word, which I won't say on the script, even though it's not that bad a word. Personal relationships.
Money's interesting because a lot of younger folks now they're at the dinner table telling everyone how much they earn, which is never the case.
Yeah, no, they don't seem to be. Or sorry, you had a question, but a lot of them aren't too fussed about whether they really are climbing the ladder. I have some people now. I don't want to work all that time and I'm happy. And I'm just like, what? You don't want to keep fighting? So there's a change. I think I could be, I could be wrong or be generalized.
Super true. No, it's true. I actually had there's an interesting article in The Economist this week about like the crab career, where it's all about used to be like climbing that greasy pole, right? You want to be, you want to get the partner, you get more money and stuff. But there's also a lot of value of like being happy, and a lot of people will take a pay cut for more happiness. And maybe it's you make a lateral move, you transition careers. A lot of people are kind of taking that approach now, which I think is very interesting.
Yeah, I tell a story. My nephew, I don't think he'd mind, but he's a data scientist, tech kind of guy, which can get a job anywhere in the United States if you're a data scientist. It's just like, he was moving to Minneapolis, and he said, "Well, I don't know if I'm going to get a job." I said, "There's BCG's there. There's 3M. There's Target. There's I'm going. You'll get a job at everyone." Oh my gosh, really? So he got two job offers at BCG. One to be on the consulting track, which is the hard work but pays very well. The other to be an internal focused person doing data analytics around the team and our time and all that, and he chose, which is much more calm, never travel, pays less, but pays well. But he chose that. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, Joe, Uncle Joe, I don't need to climb that ladder. I'm very happy. I just, for me, it's like, whoa, this was a wake up call." Because I chased that ladder my whole life. But it's, like the Economist article, that's a data point 01, but it was very eye-opening to me. Very eye-opening.
Yeah, it's true. I hear a lot, because typically it's like progression is signified by like often managing and leading teams. Like you're the best engineer, you end up being pushed into leadership, or you're a great consultant, you become a partner. And partners at consulting firms, it's more business development than delivery a lot of the time, right? Very different type of job. So creating those different career paths, I think nowadays is interesting, because it's definitely people are changing priorities, and so leading those types of people, it's different.
Right. Yeah.
I wanted to go back to my question.
Yeah, your question about
my question on the like polarization, because I get this a lot, and it's how can you so people are working in the same team and they know fundamentally that their colleague like fundamentally disagrees with them on big topics like politics, and as the leaders just often, I think, struggle to keep that team motivated, high performing team with people that have a complete, And we're all looking for diverse teams, right? There's many benefits for it, but the other side to the coin is just, as a leader, keeping the harmony, making sure people are working well together. Any advice on that?
Yeah. Well, two pieces of advice. I think the old mantra of don't bring the politics necessarily explicitly into the room hasn't changed. And maybe right now, given the polarization, probably still true. There are times to talk about it. If there's an act like George Floyd happening, it's not politics, but being silent was hurtful. So you can't, now how you handle talking about it. I do think the one thing when you ask that, if I had if you have a team of a group set up like that, I think the most important thing to do as a leader and each other is make sure all of you do the best you can to understand the other's lived experience, their context, and their perspective. I mean, to use a very controversial one, I often discuss with my wife, who's quite pro-abortion, as I'm on that side, but I said, but Sarah, they think it's murder. So, if you thought it was murder, would you think it was a good thing? No, it'd be terrible. Okay, so now you can disagree or agree, but you have to understand that's what they believe so deeply that you can't say, you can't just start complaining. I mean, it doesn't work. So now that's an extreme example, but I find it so, but in the work environment, if you're helping each other, and you can do that by the leader asking questions, well, why are you thinking that for this? Now, that's not talking the politics, but it's taking what's driving, someone's behaviors or in that moment, or why they think we should go this way versus that way. And I think actually, Lewis, I hadn't thought about this, but if you really bring out those perspectives, what's your point on diversity? Think of how much richer, well, the exploration is and how much richer the answer is. And that ain't easy, because a lot of leaders think I know the answer, so it doesn't even matter. So that's a bad start. Or well, I'm not going to waste my time asking you a bunch of questions because I want you to just do the work. I mean, but man, the power
I love that.
of it.
Oh no, absolutely, and I know you're a big advocate of that listening, and I think this links so nicely, right? Because you what you described as really questioning and listening to the answer, and I think for me, I completely agree. Like, there's so much value in seeking to understand, rather than trying to be understood. So many people there's so much of the world that's debating. I'm trying to convince you I'm right, you're wrong. It's just, it's just so much of it everywhere. And I'd love if you just approach things with curiosity, empathy, like to your abortion point, if you're speaking with someone that has a different view, like a different view on anything, leaning in with trying to understand their point of view goes a long way. And I think some of the best leaders do that really well.
I think, it's a quick story. I once had a client who the head of supply chain was presenting to the room, and the CEO was there, and he was going down his path, and the CEO asked a question that came from the other angle, and instead of stopping and saying, "Oh, sir, now what do you mean?" or "Telling me more," or if you really want to be done, "Why are you asking that?" I wouldn't do it that way, but he could. Instead, he just looked over, kind of glanced, gave some glib answer, and went back to his presentation. And that CEO, his eyes glazed. It was over. He wasn't listening the rest of the time. So the person didn't spend a nanosecond to say, where are you coming from? And, to your point, when you start to do where are you coming from, it just gets richer, and deeper. Yeah, I'll tell you one other guy, Google did a study, Project Oxygen. I don't know, but 80,000 of their managers, got a lot of managers, obviously.
Wow.
And, they said the number one thing is be a good coach. And to be a good coach, you have to listen and engage. And the best way to do that is to ask questions. That's what they found is ask questions.
It's so true.
Which I like the way you put it. So often you're trying to convince somebody, but if their brain's in a different place, I think a chance of convincing them zero, until you understand where their brain is. And even then it might be low, but at least got a chance,
Yeah, it's like, I remember at school, it's like, oh, you're good at talking, join debating society, and you kind of like learn to. It's all about convincing, right? Like setting out my argument and my thoughts, and and so forth. And then I was speaking to the headmistress at my kids' school, and they're bringing in an external like education company to teach the kids about listening skills, which I thought was incredible. I think just
That's
more of
impressive.
that in the
How old
world.
are these children? How old?
Yeah. So in the UK, you have primary school, which is
It's primary. Okay.
like 5 until like 11, let's say 11, and then they move on. Um, because there's just so much stuff going on in the world, and it's like if you don't, the best way to learn is through conversation and listening.
Yeah.
And I just think there's just more of that needed everywhere. I think
Yeah. And
wherever.
then you mentioned the business, and we started the business. I remember my first job. Well, my first job after college was Procter and Gamble as a sales rep, and there was a fellow who was a great sales rep. He was the back flapping, talk to and bigger than life. And he very rapidly one promotion. Then I discovered he was gone. Because it finally got to the place where the back slapping, doing all the talking, convincing everybody didn't work anymore. And at first I
Yeah.
thought, this is not fair. He's not that good. But the value of listening or stopping talking eventually paid off. Or eventually my belief
Yeah.
in it, was redeemed.
Yeah, and I love that. I want to just get your thoughts on and these are buzzwords that have been used a lot, and I believe in them. But being authentic. There's a lot of conversation around your authentic self, or finding your. I remember there's a great book by Bill George, like Finding Your True North, I think it was
Yeah,
called.
yeah, yeah,
If
yeah,
you've seen that, so
yeah.
there's
Of course.
there's some wonderful like advice on being authentic, and then I speak with leaders, and often it's quite a lonely place being a leader. Like everyone's looking to you, and they don't want to see. Generally, people don't want to seem weak as a leader. You don't want to admit you're struggling, and always kind of think of like who does that go-to person go to when they need help, and a lot of the time it's kind of lame at the top. And just wanted to get your thoughts on this kind of authenticity, um and also just almost being vulnerable as a leader. Is that
Yeah,
a weakness, strength? Like, what are you?
I always like to combine the two words because I think once you're starting to be authentic, unless you're just absolutely perfect, a little bit of vulnerability is going to creep in. And I don't know that anyone's
Yeah.
absolutely perfect. Well, I guess a couple. I mean, first off, I'm just going to tip my hand. I'm a very, very big believer in authenticity and vulnerability. I'll tell a story. I mean, I think someone once asked me, well, where'd you get that? But when I got married, I was 23 and I cried through my entire vows. I couldn't get them out. And the minister would do like 5 words and and my wife just boom, 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 boom. And I was so embarrassed. Oh my God, what a loser. 23-year-old. Well, afterwards, the number of people, oh, that was so wonderful. So much emotion, so much love. I thought, wow. I didn't think anything at the time. I was 23 years old, but now I reflect back, that was teaching me, okay, you can, maybe I went too far. I couldn't help it, so it didn't matter. But and then just to add to this, Lewis, my mom died when I was 30, and the 3 boys spoke at the service. But you can guess, I didn't speak. I sobbed this time. And the minister, actually, he was a priest. He stopped me and said, Joe, it's all right. For tears are the fountains of love. Now that really,
Yes.
and of course afterwards, again, I got all this reinforcement. Now that's an extreme crying. Well, I don't think it's extreme, but crying all the time. I actually have some very strong views on this. I mean, I think, um, with this work-life thing all blurred together, people want you to be, they want to be human. They want to know you see them as a human, not just the second year consultant at BCG or your producer. I mean, but just, oh no, his name's Jim. Oh, but no, it's just a producer. They want to, so they are looking for people who will connect with them that way. And when you share authenticity and vulnerability, whatever that degree of vulnerability is for you, I think there's just reams of studies and data. You free others to kind of admit they don't know it, admit they're wrong,
Yes.
or get unstuck. Because when you're stuck, nothing gets. That's an extreme statement. When you're stuck, less gets done. So I think it's quite. I think it's quite powerful. Two CEO stories. One time we had a CEO from a country speak at a BCG WOM worldwide officer meeting, and he talked about, I can't show any weakness and I got to be tough. I sat there thinking about, buddy, you're behind the times. I don't. And then you think of, I don't know if you saw it, Arnie Sorensen, the CEO of Marriott, who did pass away from cancer when COVID hit. He did that famous video, and
Yeah.
talked about, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to furlough 80,000 of you. And I can't believe this. And I don't have the answer, but I know we'll come out. And of course, he was bald from the chemo, and it was perfect. It was just him. It just happened to be even more vulnerable because he was dying.
Yeah.
Well, it was so powerful. So I know now. Well, I'll stop and let you take this.
No, carry on. I
Well,
love the
no,
stories.
because you also mentioned where do you go? That was actually a question. Like if it's lonely.
Where does the go-to person go to?
I hope you have a good partner, spouse, whatever it might be. But if you don't, then I hope you have a damn good chief of staff who's also your best friend. And if you don't have, I mean, I hope you have. Well, you have to have somebody, otherwise life's too lonely. I'm sorry, I can't fathom.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember someone told me the other day that everyone needs a psychologist in their life.
Yeah, I hope you've got someone.
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough, honestly, because like the vulnerability stories and the authenticity, I mean, are wonderful. I think, and it's giving. I think hopefully it gives permission to more people. They see other people doing it.
Right. Well, that's it's interesting. I talked to a few people about this, and one, Christina Sistrunk, CEO of Aris Energy, or former, she said she does just what you just said. She said, I would watch other leaders, and look at this person's opening up to all of us, wherever it was. I'd watch what they said, how they worked, how the reactions in the room. I didn't want to copy them, but what elements. And she'd notice, of course, that the person didn't get fired, they didn't melt under the seats. They just went on. And so, what could I learn from those moments? Another friend of mine, a guy named Brian Gross, he said to me, Joe, think back to your dark moments where you were scared and blah, blah, blah. And, whatever, I mean, on this kind of topic, and you made it through, and you're here now, and it worked. So to me, that's those two stories, and they say, well, that worked out all right. And you actually can do it. Now you got to figure out when to take a little chance if you're someone that's not used to it.
Yeah. But it's so important nowadays. I mean, a lot of people really buy into it, and so it's interesting. When I'm speaking with people, I run a global exec search firm, and I'm speaking with. I've lost count of how many people I speak with from different countries, and so often, big motivations for moving, or for being open to moving, certainly is the people aspect, and it's very rarely money. So it's like the connection with the leader, or the team.
The people that are changing.
Okay. Yeah. So, my career is poaching people from companies, right?
Okay.
And so, essentially, right?
Yeah. No, I thought you meant you're moving the senior person, but even everybody, it's like I'm not. Yeah.
Everyone. So it could be the senior, right? Not like the head of function. I mean, if they're not the CEO, they're reporting to the CEO.
Yeah.
And so if they're reporting to the CEO, it's still that relationship with the leader is really important.
Well, you heard that during COVID and whatever, the great whatever move around. I can't remember. That's what you heard. Great resignation, but maybe didn't really leave. You heard that all over and over, right? Well, I just don't feel connected to this place. And then that's where you get to, and you do hear leaders say this, your company better have some decent, good purpose, and there better be values that you, the leader, display and demonstrate. And that you do. I don't think anyone argues about that. No, you can argue about what are the values. But that's which even there, if you're going to display strong values all the time, it's not a little bit, unless you don't believe them, isn't that authenticity and vulnerability creeping in a little bit just on what we all consider pretty basic?
Yeah. It's got to match, right? Like what you talk about, what you talk, you have to match your actions.
Yeah, right.
But it's so important if you want to keep your staff or attract new people, because like the work's the work. Consulting is a good example, right? McKinsey, BCG, Bain. What's the difference? A lot of the time it's the people that you're working with, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what I always say. Now, I can at least differentiate those firms, but no, I think you. When we would go to clients, I would say that. Well, we're good. McKinsey's good. Bain's good. They got smart people. But so, who do you want to deal with? Because if you're gonna try to drive some big change, not a 6-week strategy study. You're going to be with these people all the time. You better not like them, but like them enough. It's this vulnerability thing. I was thinking of a colleague of mine who told me, he said, well, I'm not very vulnerable, Joe, but finally I realized that's not working. And what he was afraid to say, and this is vulnerable too, all simple, I don't know. He wouldn't say that to his teams. I mean, he might say it and he said, if the team room was starting to go to a place, they're going to ask him to help and have an answer, he would leave before he'd have to say, I don't know. Now, how is that productive? How is that productive? So finally, one time he said, I just took a chance and I don't know either. And the whole room, oh, you don't know. And, oh, none of us know. It's like this fresh air booster. Oh, well, let's really, and then the energy went up. I mean, it's this point. You free others to acknowledge. And he said, I guess, I said, well, how do you do it now? He said, well, it's still hard, but I do it now. I will say I don't know, but that's a simple vulnerability. I don't know.
It's hard though, because you need to make kind of original. I mean, the original kind of point was that leaders are supposed to know, well, that maybe
Yes.
were supposed to know. They're the leaders. They're supposed to know the answers, and I think now there's more and more discussion, more and more conversations like this, where I think leaders are realizing that it's so powerful to be like, hey, you know what? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
Love to hear and just getting everyone involved and stuff is really powerful.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, please.
Well, I see, you're triggering thoughts when you say these things. Joaquin Duato is a business friend of mine from J&J, and he works pretty hard to try to connect with his people. And it's got 100,000 people in the words he says. And he told me two little techniques he uses. One he calls it friend testing. So he said he'll find someone in the organization several layers down that he knows reasonably well, is close to, and say, well, what are people saying I'm saying right now? And then maybe 6 months after he got CEO, he asked the person, well, they said you want to cut costs. Of course. I said, well, I've never said that word. He said, no, but that's what everyone thinks. I said, well, I said simplify and effectiveness. They said, yeah, I know. You said cut costs. He goes, wait. And I meant like he has a complex global organization. You want to try to, it was. So, and then the other thing he uses, I thought this was very powerful. If he's going to give a talk, he'll gather together, 5 or 10 people and give the talk. And then he'll say, tell me what I said. And they'll use different words, and he will take their words because that's what they heard, even if, simplify. And then he'll also say, well, if you're going to go home tonight and tell your family around the table or whoever's at the table with you, what I said, what would I have said? What did I say? And they play it back and they say, okay, so I said ABC, they heard XYZ. I'm going to change, same messages, just in a way they actually could. It's not that hard to spend an hour, if it's an important conversation, but it's really all about that. Also, the point you just said about actually connecting with people to, you can't just, this top down command and control. I don't know. I don't hear anybody arguing for that. I mean, you got to be in charge. You got to know where you're going. You have to be able to set vision, but you got to know everybody's going to help you get there. Not
Yeah. No, I agree. You hear rarely you hear people arguing against being authentic and vulnerable. But what you do hear, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it, is a lot of people, they know they should, but they don't know quite how to. They don't know how to change their behavior to be that open, and it's not their normal thing. Any advice for folks that like they feel like they need to connect with their team more, they want to be more authentic? It's just they're not quite sure how to go about doing it.
Well, I'm going to go back to this ask questions thing, Lewis, but I do have a few things. I mean, first, I think even just to put in your own brain that the people you're working with are humans. And I don't just say people, I'm going to say humans, because just remember that. Just start there. Just start. Oh, no. It's not just the cog. That's number one. Number two, and this is something I was thinking about this. Think about something you care about a lot, because you have to care about those people to some degree. I mean, not like your daughter, maybe, or your son. Think about something you care about a lot and just transfer some of that energy to your team. But then most importantly, I really think is this step of, of just asking questions. I mean, if you're going to start a meeting, ask the most junior person on the screen. Sorry, it's on, or in the room that you barely talked to. How are you, Lewis? Sorry, I'm not calling you Lewis, but how are you, Lewis? And what happened to you this weekend? I mean, the whole room will go, what? He or she just asked the most junior guy in the room who's taking notes how they are. What was that all about? It just changed. I promise you. Yeah. And that's not, so even what you would consider a human common courtesy question, how are you? What happened this weekend? That you can ask. That's not very hard. And that just starts to open up.
Yes.
That's probably, I probably have so many different answers to that question, but you ask like that, I think just start asking others questions.
Curiosity, questioning, listening is
Yeah.
powerful. It steps
Yeah.
into everything. I wanted to get your thoughts on one final thing, if I may. If you
Okay.
may. And this is just the change conversation. You talked to, a lot of the work you do is helping organizations change in some regard. And then, the kind of often the byproduct or the effect of change is people feel nervous about change. A lot of people don't like change. Maybe they feel that they might be, I don't know, made redundant, or they're going to be asked back to, or something, just whatever it might be. How can, what are your kind of thoughts on just effective leadership through change? Like an organization is going through change. You want to try and keep your folks. You want to try and keep morale up. Are there certain kind of things that you've seen some of the best leaders do to keep that good culture going?
Yes, I guess I have two answers to that. One is not, it's probably not on the culture side, but if you're going to try to drive change, there are many reasons why it's not going to work. And if you and the team and everybody don't figure those out and solve them, you're not going to get it done anyway before we even get to people. So I always say, I think to myself, I call it engage the skeptics, uncover the no's, and solve the no's. And almost never is the noologist just blocking you because they woke up this morning saying they're going to block. It's because they know something you don't. And when you know it, you'll solve it. If you don't know it, so I think and actually also that's part of change. Oh, they're actually asking me what I think and how this could get done. Well, that's nice. Wow, they actually actually care. So you've started to shift the culture even right there. Then I do have to say, Lewis, I think if I watch over the years, the organizations and the leader who are very clear on the direction they're going, now you may not know, it may not say 26 people are going to lose their job versus 33. You got, but that there's going to be, that those that are clear and communicate over and over and over. We say communicate. You have to have all the plans and all that. I'm assuming all that. That I think is the biggest difference. And whether you're calling town halls all the time, or you're doing videos, or maybe leadership teams to meet with leadership teams. And I'll tell you what, another thing. Sorry, I'm getting a lecture here. You can't count on everybody to cascade down the message. I don't think that always works. So you can't make all the messages, but you can't just say, "Oh, I told 10 people and they told the next 100 people." I don't think so. So it's really engage the skeptics and cover the no's and communicate. If I had to cut it to two things, I think I thought about working. And then there's 1,000 things around that, of course. You and I both know.
Yeah. Love that. Jay, thank you so much. We've almost done 40 minutes. I love that. Final thing, I'm going to give you one final thing. It's a super tough question, probably the hardest question that we've talked about. But what is your outlook for the rest of 2024?
Of course, that's a super tough question because, at least in my country, you've got people, you have executives talking about we're on a growth trajectory and let's keep. Well, your question's a big question. Let's keep going. In business side, you got those who are trying to still streamline and tighten up while they go. I actually think it's going to be more of a steady as you go year. Now, we have a big thing. Over 50% of the population of the world are voting for new leadership. And much of it is leading towards, what should I say, populist type, so I don't know where the world is on whatever day, the January 6th equivalent. That I don't know. And that's, if you're asking that kind of question and where my country ended up, it's going to be the most interesting year in the history of the United States, in my opinion. Now, we'll see. Maybe it's much ado about nothing. Let's just hope, and we just keep on going.
No, you're right. It's interesting. I was to that. I think that 50% of the world population, it equates to about 70 different country elections this year.
Is it 70?
Some of which, according to The Economist, I'm quoting The Economist again.
Oh, you found the article somewhere too. Okay.
Yeah. It was great. I was like, wow. And so for me, like one of my things going into this year was I need to change my worldview, or I need to update my worldview, because.
Well, and you also need to, and you're doing podcasts, that's a good thing. How do you want to contribute to whatever you think the outcome should be? And not just, at least in North America, there's this mass middle that says it'll all work out, except the extremes are fighting like hell to make it work out a certain way. And I don't care which side you're on. I mean, I care, but I don't care. So are you going to just sit there in the middle and let it play out, or are you going to participate? And that's a big, big question for everybody individually. Like, well, no, I need to protect my family, or I need to do my day job. So
Yeah. And that stems into listening. Listen to all the
sure
sides,
does.
form your view, and
Yeah.
lead, right? Because you can lead
Well, lead. No,
in every aspect of
how are
life.
you going to lead?
Yeah.
Oh, actually, you have this podcast. Use your podcast to make sure people engage and think hard. They can make their own choices, that's of course, but engage and think hard.
Yeah. Well, it's why I have wonderful folks like you come on and share your views.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on. And
All
your
right.
book is out in April.
April
believe.
9th.
Was it
Yes.
April 9th? How can people find it?
Well,
Amazon.
you can just type in Google or Safari or any of those things, The Generous Leader by Joe Davis. Or of course, I don't like, some people say, oh, don't tell Amazon, but you can just type it in Amazon. Or I do have a website, joedavis.com. It's a little bit, but then just you can find it there.
I love that. Awesome. Well, look, thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing your views and thoughts. It was super interesting to chat. Hopefully we get to speak again very soon.
Thank you, Lewis. It was a great conversation.